Big 12 fans, what's up? What's good? I'm Aaron Pryor. This, of course, is Big 12 Big Football, presented by Dr. Pepper. As you know by now, Baylor and Oklahoma clinched their spots in the 2019 Big 12 Football Championship game. That, of course, will be played next Saturday at E14 Stadium in Arlington. For Oklahoma, it's their third straight championship game appearance. The Sooners have won the last two since the title game was reprised in 2017 with wins over TCU and Texas. And for those Baylor Bears, they'll enter the game with their first 10-win season since 2015. It'll be Baylor's first ever appearance in the Big 12 championship game. Now, not going to get into a full matchup today. We will save that for a full preview episode next week. I do want to take a look back at the beginning of the year when the 2019 preseason media poll came out and look at where the media thought the standings would shake out as we close out the season. Oklahoma's at the top there. That, of course, still in play, but look at Baylor picked down there at number 6. TCU, they won't finish that high this year, although the Frogs have been close in several games this season. Iowa State could end up being correct, and of course, Kansas State originally picked 9th this year. They won't finish any worse than 6th. Here's how the standings actually sit right now. The Big 12 has 6 bowl-eligible teams. TCU, they've got a shot at making that lucky number 7. The Frogs host West Virginia on Friday. A couple of quick housekeeping items before we get going. 2 games for the Big 12 on Friday, 3 on Saturday this week, which means if you're watching this video on Saturday, you know what happened on Friday's games, so go ahead and skip ahead a couple minutes. I won't be upset. Proceed. But if you're here before Saturday, let's get going. A couple of Black Friday specials for your post-Thanksgiving football viewing. The Red Raiders in their first year under Matt Wells have been in several close games this season. If you're a Red Raider fan, you've got to be looking up based on what you've seen, especially without having your starting quarterback for any of the conference slate. Patience, of course, is always asked for in a first-year head coach's debut season. You can see with Texas Tech this year, 4 losses by 3 points or less. They're going to get things figured out. Now, for Texas, things have certainly not gone the way the Horns wanted to this year. Many anticipated Texas getting back to that Big 12 championship game this season, but the injuries that piled up throughout the year were entirely too much for Texas to overcome, as would it be for any team. UT has been down half its starting defense, it seems, nearly the entire running back position, and even star wideout Colin Johnson at points this year. And I get it, there's no room for excuses. It's just the fact of the 2019 Longhorn season. That's your Friday morning kick. The afternoon game in Fort Worth features West Virginia at TCU. These are a couple of teams that have been close to having completely different seasons. West Virginia had a couple of league losses by a touchdown or less. TCU, even more maddening most likely, 5 losses by a touchdown or less this year. These are good young football teams, and they're only going to get better. Both TCU's Max Duggan and West Virginia's Jarrett Doege have been impressive this year. Yes, I know small sample size for Doege, but a 300-yard performance against Oklahoma State, plus the fact that he hasn't thrown an interception in his first 2 games, has got to give Mountaineer fans something to be excited about moving forward. And Duggan has been sensational for a freshman making his way through this league. He didn't take over full-time until November, and he hasn't looked back. TCU looks to become bowl eligible, while West Virginia wants to end the year on a high note with a big road win. Things get going at 3:15 Central Time on ESPN. Now, if you skipped ahead from the Friday portion, hello. Yes, still Big 12 Big Football. I'm still Aaron. If you want the standings, they're back towards the beginning. If you want to talk Saturday football, let's get going. Baylor will finish the regular season in Lawrence. Let's shine that Baylor defensive line, so dominant all season long, after moving to the 3-3-5 look in the offseason. James Lynch has been insane this year. His 8.5 sacks lead the Big 12. Baylor as a team has 33 sacks this year, 75 tackles for loss, and both of those stats lead the Big 12. These guys are so good. Now, credit where credit is due. Max Olson from The Athletic wrote a great in-depth piece on Monday about the Baylor D-line. I highly encourage you to check it out. One note from his piece, Baylor is number 1 in the country in quarterback pressures this season. Also, Baylor was 91st in the country in total defense last year. The Bears have gotten that up to 41st, a 50-spot improvement, and that D-line is certainly a major factor.
I just love our size and strength. You know, James Lynch is an all-conference caliber player. He can play at a bunch of different positions. Bravion Roy is a guy that should be an all-conference player. James Lockhart has played a lot of football for us, so I love their mentality, their toughness, and you know, that's the group to me that for us to get where we want to get has to really step up and become a dominant unit for us this year.
For Kansas, it's one last ride for their seniors, guys like Carter Stanley, Dalen Charlotte, Hakeem Adeniji, Bryce Tornaden, and Mike Lee, just to name a few. Kansas is clearly an improved team. The wins don't actually tell the whole story. Puka Williams has already rushed for 2,000 yards in his first 2 years as a Jayhawk, and he needs just 55 yards against Baylor to have back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. The Jayhawks were highly competitive in several conference games this year, most recently against Iowa State as KU had the lead midway through the fourth quarter. This Kansas team is in good hands under Coach Miles and his staff. One more time for the Jayhawks, 2:30 on ESPN Saturday afternoon. Now, it's also Farmaggedon weekend. Iowa State and Kansas State getting together in Manhattan. Both teams off of a win last week. Both are already bowl eligible, and both are looking to finish the regular season with 8 wins. The Wildcats have enjoyed quite the first year under new head coach Chris Kleiman, as Kansas State looks to hit the 8-win mark in the regular season for the first time since 2016. Skylar Thompson has had a really solid year, 12 touchdowns to only 4 interceptions to this point. Wyatt Hubert is second in the league in total sacks in just 10 games played, and both of those guys are back next season. For the Cyclones, Matt Campbell has turned this program into a winning machine. The Cyclones are a win away from back-to-back 8-win seasons for the first time since 1977 and 1978. Breece Hall has been a breakout star at running back for Iowa State. Brock Purdy has been tremendous once again. And these are two guys that are going to continue to cause problems in the league for the next several years.
You know, Brock is a young man that when you watch him play, he's got complete ownership of the how-to playing the game. And, you know, it doesn't really matter what play gets called on the sideline. Brock's a guy that's got complete ownership of everything going on in that football field at that time. And I think that's what really makes him special, and he's got a great understanding of the game.
Finally, rivalry nickname-a-palooza comes to Bedlam. Oklahoma State against Oklahoma in Stillwater. 7 o'clock on Fox. Let's dive in. Drew Brown in his first start for the Cowboys last week. Pretty good. Brown completed 22 of 29 passes for 196 yards and 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Brown, of course, didn't start playing quarterback yesterday. He's got 2 years of in-game experience under his belt. He was also named the Big 12 Newcomer of the Week this week. And of course, you've got that guy that everybody knows about. Chuba is doing it all. He basically leads every single rushing category in the country. Oklahoma State's ground attack is second in the Big 12, and the Pokes have 19 plays of 50 yards or more this season. Even with the injuries to Tylan Wallace and Spencer Sanders, these guys are incredibly difficult to stop. Plus, they've won 4 games in a row, so momentum on their side. And it's not just the offense. The defense has held 3 of its last 4 opponents to fewer than 100 rushing yards. Oklahoma comes in already locked into the Big 12 title game, but the Sooners have been pushed to the brink in each of the last 3 weeks. Against Iowa State, Baylor, and TCU, Oklahoma needed defensive stops at the very end of each game to seal things up. The Sooners definitely want to put on a dominant performance this Saturday in Stillwater, headed into the Big 12 title game. The CFP committee will be watching, and Oklahoma hasn't exactly controlled a game from start to finish since maybe that West Virginia game. All that being said, OU is still the most dominant offense in the country, 575 yards per game, that's number 1, and a team that's won 23 of the last 24 true road games. Plus, defensive coordinator Alex Grinch was named a Frank Broyles Award semifinalist this year, given to the nation's top assistant. Also on that list, Baylor DC Phil Snow. This team's got it all and keeps winning games when it matters most. The Sooners just want to keep things rolling as their momentum continues to carry them to Arlington in the Big 12 title game. Oklahoma and Oklahoma State get things going like I mentioned, 7 o'clock on Fox. Now, for the final time this year, let's check out top plays from last week.
Kansas has scored 22 points in the second half. Purdy fakes it to Hall, keeps it, touchdown! Purdy does it with his legs!
13th play of the drive. Brown to the end zone for Stoner, touchdown.
Want to grab, that's exactly what he did. Going from Mims, and no sticky Paul snags it in. Touchdown, Baylor. Wasn't the reaction shot. Little play action fake down low, but he goes up high for Mims.
Joining Stogner and Hall. Hurts throws an interception. It's Vernon Scott. Scott with wheels. Vernon Scott across midfield. He's gonna go. A game-changing pick 6.
From the end zone. Young Youngblood bringing it out. Youngblood had a 98-yarder return earlier this year in Texas. On his feet, still going, tiptoeing it in.
Thanks for watching, everyone. Next week, we'll have a full preview of Baylor, Oklahoma, the 2019 Dr. Pepper Big 12 Football Championship game. Enjoy your weekend.